World Music History, Part 13, Chicago Blues. Chicago blues genre, a form of American blues music, was developed here in Chicago and St. Louis in USA. The blues music genre was developed alongside the great migration of African Americans in the first half of 20th century. Abundant usage of electric guitar and harmonica with electronic effects make this music unique. The blues was not born in Chicago, but it was here it found its voice and began to spread the message across the world. Muddy Waters and B.B. King are considered by many to be the deans of the blues. Muddy Waters is hailed as the legend who built a bridge between the softer acoustic Delta blues and electric Chicago blues. The queen of the blues, Coco Taylor, was a legendary Chicago singer whose style encompassed Chicago blues, electric blues, rhythm and blues, and soul blues. I have listened to her live a couple of times just to get high. The Chicago blues was initially influenced by Mississippi bluesmen who migrated to Chicago in the early 1940s and 50s. The early incubator for Chicago blues was the expansive open-air market on Maxwell Street. Muddy Waters, Big Bull Brunsey, Willie Dixon, Howling Wolf, and John Lee Hooker together developed Chicago blues. It spread globally by the late 1950s and early 60s. It started directly influencing the development of early rock and roll musicians such as Chuck Berry and Bo Diddley here in the US. It influenced both British blues and early hard rock artists such as Eric Clapton, the Rolling Stones, and Led Zeppelin in the UK. The Chicago Blues Festival has been held annually since 1984 in the beautiful Grand Park. The electric guitar and harmonica drive me crazy. I have listened live to most of the famous living artists in Chicago. World Music History, Part 14, American Jazz. Quote, jazz celebrates the music of America from blues and ragtime to swing, bebop, and fusion. Unquote. Jazz is a musical genre that originated in the African American communities of New Orleans, Louisiana, USA in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. It had roots in blues, ragtime, spirituals, hymns, marches, vaudeville songs, and dance music. It also incorporated interpretations of African and European classical music, entwined with African and slave folk songs and the influence of West African culture. New Orleans was the main nexus between the Afro-Caribbean and African American cultures. The music of New Orleans, Louisiana had a profound effect on the creation of early jazz. In later decades, jazz spreads around the world. Over the decades, swing, big bands, Kansas City jazz, bebop, cool jazz, hard bop, modal jazz, jazz rock fusion sprang up. Latin and Afro-Cuban jazz were developed later in the 21st century. The 1930s belonged to popular swing big bands. Jewish Americans were able to bring jazz music that African Americans developed into popular culture. Benny Goodman and Gene Krupa from Chicago became leading members of swing during the 1930s. Female jazz performers and composers have contributed jazz throughout the history. Ella Fitzgerald, Billie Holiday, and Betty Carter are just a few famous names to mention. The other famous jazz artists are Louis Armstrong, Ella Fitzgerald, Duke Ellington, Miles Davis, Billie Holiday, John Coltrane, Charlie Parker, Dizzy Gillespie, Charles Mingus, Nat King Cole, Benny Goodman, and Wynton Marsalis, just to mention a few famous names out of the many. I started to listen to jazz music since the very fifth day I arrived penniless in Chicago in the summer of 1972 during free summer outdoor concerts on the lake. It took me a few years to appreciate the jazz music. World Music Introduction, Part 15, Belly Dance Music, Egyptian and Turkish. Belly dance has roots in Middle East, particularly in Egypt, and today Egypt remains as the most famous country for belly dancing. The dance form was popularized in the West during the Orientalist period of Romantic movement of the 18th and 19th centuries. Throughout the Middle East and Arab diaspora, belly dancing is closely associated with Arabic music called as El Jadid. Today, performances at world fairs, Hollywood portrayal of dance, and global fusion of various dance styles have significantly influenced this dance form. Some of the most popular styles include Egyptian, Turkish, and Lebanese. Egyptian belly dance is noted for its controlled, precise movement and is performed with Arabic music. In Turkey, the style of belly dance is lively and playful, with a greater outward projection of energy. Swarna and I enjoyed an Egyptian belly dance performance while we were cruising River Nile back in 2001. We caught up with a Turkish belly dance show in Istanbul back in 2004. Samia Gamal and Taheya Karyoka are often revered as some of the greatest belly dancers of all time. Belly dancing gained American national attention during the Chicago 1893 World's Fair. Thomas Edison made several films of belly dancers in the 1890s. Hollywood began producing films such as The Sheik, Cleopatra, and Salome to capitalize on Western fantasies of the Orient. Some of the iconic performances of belly dancing in cinemas include Samia Gamal's dance in the film Ali Baba and 40 Thieves and Taheya Karyoka's dance performance in film Shore of Love. Written, narrated and produced by M.S. Patil, Beyond the Shadow of Doubt, from the very heart of Chicago, Illinois, USA. Thank you kindly. January 2024.